So there's all sorts of things that can go wrong there in data. And one way to avoid that, or one way to deal with it, is that you use the median instead of the mean. Okay, so the median gives the middle value of the data. So say we've got these 5 observations here, 10, 7, 6, 4 and 7. You put them in order. There are 5, so you want the third one, which is in the middle. So you just know you've got 1, 2 on that side and 2 on that side, so you want the middle value. And again, you don't do that ever. The computer does it. You can either use that output like I just showed you, or there is a function called median in Excel. So you get the computer to find it out. Now the advantages of the median is that it's not affected by outliers in the way the mean is. And it can provide a better representation that's not symmetric. And the word that we use for something that's not symmetric is skewed. I think I'm going to give you an example of that in a minute. Yep. Okay, the disadvantages is that it doesn't take every value into account. So change in values on one side of the median will not change the median. So there's pluses and minuses for medians and means. It's used just about always for house prices and incomes as well. Anything that's always going to be skewed or just about always skewed, which means you've got a lot more at one end than another, then you would tend to use the median. So here's an example of some house prices in thousands of dollars for 2 different suburbs, Charleston and Daleworth, and you'll see all of the numbers are exactly the same. This is made up except for this last number here. So the mean for the 2 different suburbs is vastly different. Okay, so even though 9 out of 10 houses were exactly the same, there's one different one in Dalewood, so the mean goes up from 275 to 415. And so that's not really indicative of what's going on in that suburb, because this one thing, an outlier, has been able to shift what's happening in the rest of the area. So if you use a median, which is the middle value, it comes between 240 and 250. The median is 245, and it's the same for both suburbs. So this is why they use medians in real estate reporting. Now, in terms of what you're expected to do in the quizzes, there are a lot of true-false questions about when you use a median and when you use a mean, about what outliers are, about what a mean is, and all sorts of things like that. So you expect to have an understanding of how it all works. As well as that, there'll be these financial ones about variation too. Okay, the other one that's sometimes used is the mode. And when you have nominal data, and remember nominal is the stuff which just has names, it doesn't have numbers. Having said that, sometimes nominal data can pretend to be another kind of data. For example, for many years I used to teach a stage 2 class in statistics where we did regression. And part of it is we would try to predict the prices of cars. And so people would have information about the car, and they would have how many kilometres it had done and how old it was. And those are both interval data. They are amounts, they are numbers, they are continuous, and they have meaning. As a car gets older, it tends to be worth less. As a car is used more, has done more kilometres, it tends to be worth less as well. But another one that was in there was the number of doors in a car. Okay, now a car can have 2, 3, 4 or 5 doors generally. Okay, so that sounds like interval data, because you think, well, clearly 4 doors is 1 more door than 3 doors. And that's true in a way, but in terms of what we're looking at, in fact, the only way that it really is meaningful is if we're trying to sell doors to people, that it actually is an interval data. In every other way, the number of doors is in fact nominal. Because if you think about it, a car that's most expensive and flashy, how many doors is it going to have? 2? Yeah, probably, because it's a sports car. Okay, what about a 5-door car that's like a station wagon or a hatchback or something like that? And that's sort of more middle of the range. 3-door cars, they could be one or the other and so on. So the number of doors, though it looks like a number, is not actually interval data. It acts like nominal data. So you've got to be careful in that case. So if we were going to be finding the average number of doors in the set of cars, would that be a meaningful thing to do? Probably not. What would be more meaningful would be to find the mode and say that out of the cars we've got on our lot, most of them, or the highest number of them, had 4 doors, or something like that. So it's the most frequent value. Sometimes the mode is given for continuous data, so that's things like prices and so on like that, because it refers to the highest peak, rather like a global maximum like we did in Module 2. And a set of data may have more than one mode. It can be bimodal or have more, and that can indicate that, in fact, there are 2 different populations in this group of things that we're looking at. And we talked a little bit about that at the end of last week's lecture.